Have you ever had that weird feeling, like your partner was suddenly abducted by emotional aliens? Yesterday, she was all over you like a laptop sticker, and today you're like a QR code with no signal. Silence, coldness, a blank stare into the messenger void, and there you are, trying to figure out where you went wrong. Number 7, the phantom affection. You didn't mess up. She just accidentally activated a biological system that could make military-grade radar jealous. Here's how it works. When you respond to that emotional freeze with desperation, clingy messages, and attempts to fix something you don't even understand, you're basically handing over your emotional steering wheel. Like, hey, how's it going? Here's the remote control to my self-worth. Use it wisely. Need a better image? Picture a confused puppy trying to understand why its owner stopped playing. It spins in circles, barks at nothing, lies down, sad. Now replace the puppy with you and the owner with her emotional patterns. Welcome to the club. There's a term for this. Intermittent reinforcement. The same mechanism that gets people hooked on slot machines. You never know when the reward is coming. Sometimes it's affection. Other times, it's the emotional frostbite of Alaska, and that keeps you hooked even more than genuine love would, because the brain hates uncertainty, but loves an unfulfilled emotional promise. Soul Rex advice: if every time she disappears, you go after her like it's the last loaf of bread on earth, congrats, you're training her to keep disappearing. Want to flip the game? Don't react. Watch. Keep living your life. The real power move isn't chasing, it's walking like nothing happened, because honestly, maybe nothing did. Number 6, the magic mirror. At first, it felt like a cheesy Netflix rom-com you had everything in common. She liked the same music, laughed at your jokes, hated that one annoying aunt. It almost made you want to get soulmates tattooed on your forehead. Then, out of nowhere, her tastes change. Now she's into country music, binging true crime series, and you're just background noise in her playlist. You wonder, was she faking all of it? My answer, yes, but hold on, not out of malice. It's her brain trying to keep you close, like a chameleon, emotionally speaking. During the initial mating mode, the female brain kicks into full mirror mode. Everything you love, she loves too. You talk about skateboarding, she wants to learn. You love burgers? She devours one just to seem relatable. But really, it's just her subconscious building connection, because the more she seems like you, the faster she hooks you in. Science backs it up. This is an instinctive response to form a quick, strong emotional bond, like, if I'm just like him, he won't leave. And it works, big time. But here's the thing, once the bond feels solid, she relaxes. And that, my friend, is when the real her steps in. It's like buying a luxury car, only to realize later it's a Fiat wrapped in a Lamborghini skin. Still runs, but the engine doesn't quite growl the same. Jurassic's advice: don't freak out when the magical coincidences fade. It doesn't mean she's fake. It means you're finally seeing who she really is. And now comes the big question: do you still like what you see? Number 5, the invisible guilt. You come home, hyped to watch that dumb show only the two of you get, but there she is, closed-off face, heavy vibe, silence that screams you screwed up. But you don't know how, or why. You just feel like you did something wrong, even though you didn't. Congrats, you've triggered the emotional responsibility transfer mode. This move is as ancient as the pyramids. She feels something bad and, totally unconsciously, throws the weight your way. As if to say, if I feel bad, it must be your fault. And the worst part? It works because the male brain, wired to solve problems, goes into fix-it-all mode. You become the emotional janitor, walking on eggshells, replaying what you said, adjusting your tone, avoiding conflict like she's a live grenade of feelings. But the more you try to avoid friction, the more you lose yourself. And without realizing it, you become that guy who dimmed his light just to not rock the boat. Picture a superhero who traded his costume for an apron. Instead of saving the world, he's washing dishes and crying because she didn't reply, "Good morning." Neuroscience shows that this pattern activates guilt, and anxiety circuits in men, creating long-term avoidance behavior. And over time, you start feeling less like a man. Because you adapted so much to her moods, you forgot who you are. Advice: you're not her therapist or her emotional babysitter. If she doesn't know how to express what she's feeling, that doesn't automatically make you the bad guy. When in doubt, ask clearly, do you want to talk about it or do you just need some space? And then honor the answer, but don't carry the emotional piano on your back. Number 4, the hot and cold cycle. One day she's melting in your arms, telling you you're the most amazing man alive. The next, she barely replies to your messages, treats everything like a chore, and seems emotionally sedated. You wonder, is she bored of me? Then bam, she's back, affectionate, flirty, like nothing ever happened. You think it's just a phase, just coincidence? Nope. It's dopamine, baby. This emotional roller coaster isn't just annoying, it's addictive. Literally. It's the same intermittent reinforcement mechanism behind addiction. And guess what? Your brain is acting like it's in an emotional casino. Every burst of affection after a cold spell triggers your reward system like you just hit the jackpot. The worst part? You start anxiously waiting for the warm phase. You suffer through the cold phase but don't leave because you crave that sweet emotional treat again. This creates a toxic emotional bond where love stops being connection and turns into dependence. You've become a hamster in an emotional lab, pressing the button, hoping for a tiny drop of affection like it's water. Studies are clear. Relationships with intermittent emotional reinforcement create stronger and harder to break bonds than stable ones. Not because they're better, but because your brain becomes a hostage to inconsistency. If you only feel the relationship is alive when there's drama, maybe what you're calling intensity is really just instability. Healthy love shouldn't give you ulcers. And if the good phase only comes after suffering, then my friend, you're in a punishment-reward loop, not a relationship. Number 3, the subtle hints. You're just chilling, thinking everything's fine when she drops a line like, wow, Anna got a ring as a surprise gift. She didn't even expect it. You casually reply, oh, that's nice, but your subconscious is already sweating over your credit card bill. That, my friend, is a subtle hint. A silent but highly effective emotional weapon. It doesn't come as a demand, it shows up as a random comment disguised as small talk. But the real message is clear: do the same or I'll be quietly disappointed. The genius part, you think it was your idea, that you wanted to do something nice, that it came from you, but nope. It was a seed planted with the finesse of an emotional ninja. It's like being hypnotized by a magic trick where, at the end, the rabbit pops out of the hat holding a pricey bouquet paid for by you. Psychologists call this emotional priming, subtle exposure to an idea that influences your behavior without you realizing it. It seems harmless, but it has a direct impact on your choices. You can surprise her, you can give gifts, but do it because you want to, not because you were emotionally nudged by a casual story about her cousin's surprise dinner. If it feels too indirect, it probably is. And if she can't ask for it directly, maybe she doesn't deserve something that comes from the heart. Number 2, the love bombing. In the beginning, it was a love tsunami. Messages every half hour, heart emojis, travel plans for 6 months ahead. She said she'd never met anyone like you, that you were different, that she felt something unexplainable. You thought you'd hit the emotional jackpot. But then, the tide receded, and you were left with a weird feeling. What happened to that magical beginning? She didn't disappear. She's just not that affectionate whirlwind anymore. And you? Addicted to the start, desperately trying to relive what already passed. There's a name for this: love bombing. It's an overwhelming amount of affection in the beginning to create a fast, intense bond. It's not always intentional, but it's dangerous, because when the initial intensity fades, and it always does, you feel rejected. Even if she's just returning to normal, It's like having a 5-scoop ice cream cone on the first bite, and then only getting crumbs, and now you're begging for just a taste. This kind of beginning sets up an expectation that's impossible to maintain, and many men mistake the end of the bombing for a loss of interest. But often it was just the unsustainable excess fading away. Advice: be skeptical of whirlwind romances. A good relationship is built, not a roller coaster ride. If she's already picked baby names by the second date, chances are the next phase is emotional withdrawal. Choose someone who starts slow and stays, because the ones who go too fast, they're usually the first to slam the brakes. Number 1, the final control attempt. You decided to flip the script, stopped chasing, stopped sending long texts every time she disappeared, stopped carrying guilt that wasn't yours. You got stronger, more grounded, and instead of the peace you expected, came the chaos. She started provoking more, picking fights out of nowhere, ghosting without warning, throwing passive-aggressive comments. Everything felt like it was falling apart, but in reality it was just her instincts panicking. Because now you're no longer controllable. This is the make or break moment. When her unconscious emotional system senses it's lost control, it switches to survival mode, it pushes harder, it tests your boundaries. It goes full throttle to pull you back into emotional submission. But this is where you need to be the rock. Firm, calm, unshaken. It's like you were a puppet who cut the strings, and now the puppeteer is losing it, trying to pull what's no longer there. Studies show that emotional non-reactivity disrupts toxic patterns for good. When positive reinforcement, drama, guilt, disappearing acts, no longer gets the desired reaction, the system recalibrates or gives up. Soul wrecks. Advice: will it hurt? Yes, but it's the pain of growth. Either she matures and learns to communicate like an adult, or she leaves to find someone else willing to be emotionally molded. And honestly, let her go, because the right woman doesn't try to control you. She walks beside you and knows that respect is given, not demanded with emotional blackmail. A good relationship isn't psychological warfare. It's not a behavior experiment. It's a connection between whole adults, not broken halves, playing emotional games. And you know what really attracts an emotionally mature woman? A man who doesn't bend, who doesn't shapeshift, who knows exactly who he is. Your peace isn't for sale, and anyone who tries to buy it will leave empty-handed. Human creature, if this hit home, hit that subscribe button before the world ends. And in the next video, I'll give you one more chance to avoid extinction. Know what? I'll see you there.